The bodies in the water. The city that wouldn't say the words. Austin, Texas. 2022 to 2025. 38 men pulled from Lady Bird Lake. Cold, bloated, forgotten. 38 men pulled from Lady Bird Lake. Cold, bloated, forgotten. The police called it bad luck, drunk tourists, slippery banks, statistics. The families called it something else. They called it a hunter, working the bar district, picking off men who walked home alone. One body, then 2, then 10, then 30. The mayor said nothing. The chief said accidents. The medical examiner ruled drowning, 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 like a stamp on a conveyor belt. But something was moving along the rainy street corridor. Something patient. Something that knew the camera's blind spots better than the cops did. And in the spring of 2025, it slipped up. Act 1. The Stain. A body in the water and a city in denial. The first one they couldn't ignore, washed up near the Congress Avenue Bridge. Young, mid-20s, tech worker. Last seen leaving a bar on Rainy Street at 1:47 a.m. Phone pinged once near the waterline, then dark. 3 days later, a kayaker found him. Face down, lungs full of lake. Wallet still in his pocket. Watch still on his wrist. Not a robbery, not a fall, just gone. The cops took photos, filed paperwork, closed the file by Friday. Drowning. But his mother didn't close the file. She started counting, and the number was ugly. Since 2022, men had been turning up in Lady Bird Lake at a rate that didn't match any other city in Texas. Healthy men, sober men, men who told friends they were heading home and then didn't. The pattern was a whisper at first, a Reddit thread, a podcast, a mother on local news with a binder full of names. 38 names, average age 29, all male. All last seen downtown, all pulled from the same 2-mile stretch of water. The police pushed back hard. No serial killer, no evidence of foul play, just a city with a lot of bars and a deep, cold lake, and young men who drink too much. That was the official line. Repeat it, print it, frame it. Meanwhile, the bodies kept coming. A bartender on 6th Street, a musician walking to his car, a software engineer who told his wife he'd be home by midnight, a bartender on 6th Street, a musician walking to his car, a software engineer who told his wife he'd be home by midnight. Each one ruled accidental, each one buried with a question mark instead of a period. Then, in March of 2025, a security camera at a parking garage on Red River caught something. 11 seconds of grainy footage. A man, then another man behind him, then both men out of frame, walking toward the lake. Only one of them came back into frame 6 minutes later. Alone, hands in his pockets, calm. The other man washed up Tuesday, and the detective who watched that tape finally said the word. Serial. Act 2. The Shadows. The city that refused to investigate its own dead. The problem with hunting a ghost is convincing your bosses the ghost exists. Detective Marisol Vega, 16 years on the force, 2 on the Lake Task Force that didn't officially exist, took that 11-second tape to her lieutenant in March. He told her tourists do strange things at 2 a.m. She took it to the captain, The captain told her budgets were tight, and the FBI didn't see a pattern. She took it to the families. The families already knew. For 3 years, Austin PD had refused to use the words serial offender. Politically toxic, bad for tourism, bad for the music festivals, bad for the tech money flooding into downtown towers. So Vega worked it off the books. Nights, weekends, her own gas money. She built a map, 38 pins. She built a timeline. Thursdays and Saturdays mostly, between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Always within 4 blocks of a specific cluster of bars. She pulled every camera she could legally pull, and a few she couldn't. The wrong suspects piled up fast. A homeless man who'd been seen near 2 of the bodies. Alibi, shelter check-in logs. A bar bouncer with a violent record. Alibi, working the door on camera during 3 of the deaths. A registered offender who lived 2 blocks from the lake. Alibi, prison. He'd been incarcerated during 11 of the killings. The killer wasn't hiding in Austin's underworld. He was hiding in its uniform. Vega kept pulling threads, and one thread kept snagging. A face, same baseball cap, same gait. Caught in 4 separate camera feeds over 14 months. Always near the water, always near closing time, always alone after. She ran the face through facial recognition. Nothing. She ran it through DMV. Nothing. She ran it through the city's own employee database and got a hit. The man in the cap worked for the city, drove a service vehicle, had legitimate reasons to be near the lake at any hour, any night, any weather. He had keys to half the gates along the trail, and he'd passed his last 3 background checks without a flag. Act 3. The Deviant. The quiet man who knew every dark corner of the city. His name was withheld at first. The arrest warrant called him Subject A. 41 years old, divorced, no criminal record. Worked for a municipal contractor doing nighttime maintenance along the hike and bike trail. Neighbors called him polite. Co-workers called him quiet. His ex-wife called him cold. The investigation pulled his devices in April. What they found turned the stomachs of veterans. Browser history going back 6 years. Forums about drowning. Forums about asphyxiation. Forums where men described in clinical detail the physiology of dying in cold water. He had bookmarked academic papers, post-mortem studies, decomposition timelines. He'd read them the way other men read sports scores. And he'd taken notes. A notebook in his apartment, spiral-bound, cheap, filled with handwritten observations, times, weather conditions, lake temperatures, bar closing patterns. No names. He didn't dignify them with names, just numbers, 1 through 38. Beside each number, a single word. Compliant, resistant, quick. The Reddit account they tied to his IP had posted in a true crime subreddit for years. Calm, articulate, helpful. He liked to correct other users about forensic details. He once wrote, "Most drownings leave no defensive wounds. The lungs simply give up. It's the most peaceful way to disappear." 3 weeks before his arrest, he posted a photograph of Lady Bird Lake at dawn. The caption read, "Quiet morning. The water keeps its secrets." Investigators believe he was watching the search for himself, reading the news, commenting on the threads, feeding off the city's slow, willful blindness. He had a system. He worked closing time at specific bars. He'd offer help, a ride, a hand, directions to a rideshare pickup. He wore the city's uniform. People trusted the uniform.
He'd walk them toward the trail, toward the water, toward the blind spots in the camera grid he'd memorized by maintaining them. And when the water closed over them, he went back to his truck, logged his shift, drove home, slept. But on April 11th, 2025, the DNA came back from a fingernail scraping on victim number 36, a scraping the medical examiner had bagged in 2024 and forgotten in a drawer. It matched a familial sample in a public genealogy database, a second cousin he'd never met, in Ohio. The trap had a name now. Act 4. The Trap. DNA in a forgotten drawer, a cousin who didn't know. The genealogy hit cracked the case in 72 hours. Vega's team built the family tree fast, narrowed it to 3 male relatives in central Texas. 2 had alibis stretching back years. 1 didn't. 1 drove a city service truck. 1 had keys to the trail gates. 1 had a quiet apartment 2 miles from the lake. They put a surveillance team on him on April 13th. Plainclothes, 3 vehicles. They watched him buy groceries, watched him jog, watched him sit on a bench by the water at sunset and stare at it like a man visiting a grave. On April 15th, he clocked in for his night shift. The team followed. 2 unmarked sedans, a helicopter overhead, dark and silent. At 1:34 a.m., he parked his service truck near a maintenance gate, stepped out, walked toward a man in a hoodie staggering down the trail alone. The man in the hoodie was an undercover officer. Takedown! 3 officers moved from the shadows. He didn't run, he didn't fight. He turned his hands palms up like he'd rehearsed it. In his jacket pocket, a roll of duct tape, a length of fishing line, a small ceramic weight. In his truck, a logbook. 38 entries, each one time-stamped, each one matched to a body Austin PD had called an accident. At the station, he asked for water. He asked for a lawyer.
And then he asked, very politely, how long the interview would take, because he had a shift in the morning. He thought he was going home. The mask was off, and underneath was nothing. No rage, no remorse. Just a man who had spent 3 years drowning strangers and logging the data. When they read in the charges, he tilted his head and said, "I'd like to see the evidence list." Like a man checking a receipt. Act 5. The Void. 38 names. A city that didn't want to know. 38 families got phone calls in the weeks after the arrest. Some had spent years being told their sons were drunk, their husbands were careless, their brothers were statistics. Now the city wanted to apologize. Now the press conferences came. Now the mayor used words like tragedy and failure. None of them used the word they owed: wrong. The families had been right for 3 years. The Reddit threads had been right. The mothers with binders had been right. The city had been wrong. The captains had been wrong. The medical examiners who stamped drowning, drowning, drowning had been wrong. And the cost of being wrong was counted in sons. One mother told reporters she'd called the police 17 times. 17. Each time she was told there was no pattern. Each time another man went into the water. The killer is charged with capital murder in 11 cases so far. Prosecutors say more charges are coming. The investigation is active. The logbook is being matched to cold cases as far back as 2019.
Detective Vega was promoted. She didn't celebrate. She filed for a transfer. She told a reporter, off the record, that she still sees the lake in her dreams, still counts the pins on her map, still wonders how many they'll never find. How many were ruled accidents and cremated before anyone thought to check. Because that's the thing about a lake. It doesn't give back everything it takes. And Austin is a city built on water. Epilogue. The water keeps its secrets. The city kept its silence. 38 men walked home one night and never made it. 38 men walked home one night and never made it. A city of bright lights and live music and tech money looked the other way. For 3 years, it called murder by another name. Because the truth was bad for business. A killer in a city uniform worked the closing shift, wrote his numbers in a spiral notebook, posted on Reddit about the peace of drowning. And one detective, off the books, on her own dime, pulled a thread until a forgotten fingernail in a drawer gave him a name. The trial begins in 2026. The bodies are still being identified. The water is still cold. The bars still close at 2 a.m. And somewhere in Austin tonight, a man is walking home alone. Pray the cameras are working.